Welcome back to the Making International in Korea video series. In this video, I'm going to explaining on Northern Limit Line, in short terms NLL. The United Nations Command and the North Korean Army established a military demarcation line on land at the time they signed the Inter-Korean Armistice Agreement on May 27, 1953. But did not extend it into the maritime areas. The seaward extension, which became known as the Northern Limit Line, NLL, was drawn by the UN Commander General Mark Clark on August 3 of 1953, and this is a line that is roughly equidistant between the North Korean coastline and the 5 tiny South Korean islands, Baekneungdo, Daecheongdo, Socheongdo, Yeonpyeongdo, and Udo, which taken together contain 5 square miles of land that hug the North Korean coast but are controlled by and claimed by South Korea. Its proposal to prevent a clash between military vessels and aircraft of both sides, and seems originally to have been designed to prevent South Korean naval vessels and aircraft from going north. It has been challenged by North Korea ever since because it was declared unilaterally and because North Korea views the line as an infringement on its sovereignty and its legitimate access to the sea. Because NLL is not mentioned in the Armistice Agreement itself, its status and that of waters around it remain contentious. South Korea acknowledged that the NLL declaration was not officially part of the agreement and marked the cessation of hostilities between the two countries, but argued that the NLL has become the de facto border because the first, North Korea did not object to the NLL until the October 1973. And second, North Korea implicitly recognized NLL several times. And third, 1991 Beijing Agreement stipulates in Article 11 that the South and North demarcation line and areas for non-aggression shall be identical with the areas that have been under the jurisdiction of each side until the present time. And the Protocol on Non-Aggression states that North and South Sea non-aggression demarcation line shall continue to be discussed in the future. Until the sea non-aggression demarcation line has been settled, the sea non-aggression zones shall be identical with those that have been under the jurisdiction of each side until the present time. So South Korea does argue that the NLL cannot be unilaterally challenged or discussed except in a compromise or comprehensive agreement to bring permanent peace to the Korean Peninsula, and South Korean conservative view alteration to the Northern Limit Line as a violation of the Korean Constitution, which require the government to maintain the integrity of nations' borders. South Korean resistance to creating a joint development zone encompassing the territory on both sides of NLL is based on partially on the concerns that such an agreement would nullify the line and cede territory to North Korea. The United States concurs the 1991 Beijing Agreement between North and South Korea stipulates that both Koreas must respect the line until a new agreement can be reached. North Korea counters that when NLL was drawn, the UN command did not inform Pyongyang, which neither acknowledged nor accepted it. It argued that the NLL illegally restricts its access to the open sea and should be redrawn further to the south to more closely reflect the land demarcation between two countries. North Korea asserts that it has challenged the line on many occasions during the past 55 years, particularly as the value of the blue crab catch in the area has become more apparent. It also argued that its vessels have regularly fished in the waters claimed by the South, and since then, since March 1955, it has claimed, under customary international law, a 12 nautical mile territorial sea from the east coast and extend well south of the northern limit line. Because the northern limit line hugs the North Korean coastline, the Pyongyang claims that it unfairly gives too much ocean space to South Korea. Among other things, the special zone envisages the creation of the Joint Fishing and Peace Zone, and second, the Haeju Special Economic Zone, and third, joint utilization of the Haeju Harbor, and fourth, direct passage for civilian vessels to Haeju through the NLL, and fifth, the joint use of the Han River estuary. Following the summit, several high-level meetings were held between two Koreas in order to iron out the details and implement this October 4 agreement. Numerous mutual benefits were envisioned by the establishment of the West Sea Special Zone. For example, a joint fishing zone in the West would help prevent illegal fishing by Chinese fishing boats, increase the income of fishermen by expanding the fishing grounds, and deter neighbor conflicts between the South and North. It was also expected that the development of the Haeju port would stimulate the Haeju Special Economic Zone and the Kaesong Industrial Complex by establishing a maritime distribution network, and that mass transport of sand and gravel excavated in the western area, such as the Bay of Haeju, would contribute to the stable distribution of domestic resources. Furthermore, direct passage for civilian vessels to Haeju would dramatically shorten the time it takes to travel to Haeju Harbor, reducing maritime distribution costs and thereby encouraging active maritime exchange between the two states. Although the project has been in limbo since the change in South Korea's administration in early 2008 and the subsequent chilling of the inter-Korean relations, interest in establishing the West Special Zone has survived. The port city of Incheon in particular has a special interest in the establishment of the Special Peace and Cooperation Zone. In addition to being located in the west coast near the NLL, Incheon experienced the bombing of Yeonpyeong Island in 2010 by North Korea. Thus, for Incheon, it is extremely important to prevent further civilian and economic losses due to the conflict over the NLL. At the time, the ex-mayor, the Incheon, Song Yong-gil, stressed in his 2011 New Year's address the area around the 5 small islands near the NLL in the West Sea should be established as a special sea special zone. This declaration by then Mayor Song was in line with the provisions agreed to in the second Inter-Korea Summit in 2007 that addressed the creation of West Sea Special Zone. The hope is that joint efforts could bring the stability, peace, mutual economic benefit to both Koreas in an area commonly referred to as Powder Keg. Furthermore, the ex-president of South Korea, Park Geun-hye, indicated that she was more open to possibility of joint economic project with the North than her predecessor, former President Lee Myung-bak. President Park's North Korean the politic doctrine alignment policy aimed to be both tough and flexible, not giving in to North Korean provocations while being open for dialogue. She also viewed a joint economic project and trade between the Koreas as part of the trust-building process. Unfortunately, a joint economic project between two Koreas, such as the GIC, Kaesong Industrial Complex and mounting Kumgang tours were on hold, and inter-Korea relation has been especially tense since early 2013, up until new president of South Korea, Moon Jae-in, was elected. The need for establishing a West Sea Special Zone remains, and it is in interest of the both Koreas to actively cooperate and resume efforts at creating the special zone at the earliest possibilities.